Let's keep the conversation going with Adam Back. He is the co-founder and CEO of Blockstream. He's also considered a pioneer in crypto technology because in 1997, he invented Hashcash, which is, of course, a predecessor to Bitcoin mining. He says that the quantum threat is, quote, decades off. So let's talk about that a little bit, Adam, that, okay, when it comes to this quantum risk, perhaps it's real, but in your view, perhaps not imminent.
Right. I mean, the current hardware, so, the Google paper is talking about algorithmic improvements. It doesn't bring with it any hardware improvements, right? And the current hardware that the companies doing the research have is extremely basic. It generally doesn't have any error correction. The biggest calculation it's performed is that to factorize the number 21 into 7 times 3, the sort of thing that primary school children can do and practice. So the hope they have is that with continued research, the hardware will get faster and eventually be able to tackle serious problems that today's computers can't. But today it's much slower than a calculator or something extremely basic.
So you're essentially, I just want to make sure I have this right, Adam. You're essentially saying that this is not a thing at this point in time to be concerned about. We're years away from that. If that is indeed your position, when should we be concerned about quantum computing and Bitcoin?
Well, I think that we don't have to agree about the timeline for quantum computers to become powerful enough to be a threat to the spending mechanisms for Bitcoin transactions, because the prudent thing to do is to prepare Bitcoin and give people the option to migrate their keys to a quantum-ready format, and to have, let's say, a decade in which to do that. So I think for that reason, the longer time that Bitcoin users have in order to migrate their keys for custodians and exchanges to move their coins to a quantum-ready format, the safer it will be. So the reason to work on that now, and Blockstream research has been doing exactly that and actually implemented some quantum-ready signature format into Liquid, which is a Bitcoin layer 2. And Liquid has a long track record of bringing first to live use features that later got added to Bitcoin. So there is some precedent for that.
So I want to throw something else at you, and it's the idea of AI and maybe AGI at some point. Is that a risk, in your view, to Bitcoin or to crypto?
No, I don't think so, really. I mean, it's sort of like computer-aided design. It's something that can help researchers, organize their thoughts and assemble things to consider, but not in itself, no.
And when it comes to quantum, I do want to go back to this paper because as we were just discussing with Vildana Heinrich, I mean, the researchers did have some recommendations for the crypto industry, shifting towards that PQC, geez Louise, and also to cut avoidable risks. I mean, again, in your view, this is not imminent. This is a far off sort of scenario here. But even still, I mean, do you think it's worth thinking about how to quantum proof here?
Yeah, I mean, we have been. So Blockstream has a 20-person research team that's been, working on this, all of this year and into last year, and published a number of papers, and a number of other researchers in the Bitcoin space have done likewise. So I think it's just that, negative news sells. So they get a lot of attention for quantum hardware research or algorithmic research by talking about it in Bitcoin terms, whereas the people like ourselves who have a 20-person team publishing papers, implementing things, putting them live, that doesn't grab as much attention. So I think there's a kind of mismatch between the recognition of the work that's being done. And so, things are well underway. There's a draft BIP, which is related. We've implemented and put forward a couple of different proposals, shrinks and shrimps, which are different optimized versions. And I think the other thing people should bear in mind is that the post-quantum signature technology has only very recently been standardized by NIST. So that was only in November 2024.
Adam, I just want to, in the last minute that we have with you, sort of make a hard pivot to understanding adoption worldwide of Bitcoin, because you've been in this space for so long. Sovereign adoption of Bitcoin, we think of El Salvador and others. Where is it right now as a tool as a strategic asset versus a tool that undermines monetary sovereignty if you are a country thinking about or actually adopting the tech?
I mean, I think it fits into the kind of hard money category. So the digital gold is probably the best way to understand it there, which is, it's a different asset. Of course, countries benefit from having different economic policies and, their central bank setting the interest rates and things like that. So that's something that continues in parallel with a hard money like Bitcoin or gold. And Switzerland, for example, there's some discussion about having a referendum to reintroduce the gold standard because it's the last major currency to leave it, and this time around to add Bitcoin to the mix.